everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Daily Wisdom Words podcast. I'm your co-host, Neil Torelli.
Hey, everyone. I'm Rini O'Day. I am also your co-host. We want to thank you for joining us today and give a warm welcome to our latest episode.
Join us every Saturday at 9 a.m. Pacific time as we talk to guests who have stories, advice, and life hacks, all of which take you one step closer to that feeling of hope.
Today, our guest is a very important person to me. She is a mental health advocate, and she is also my goddaughter and niece. Everyone, Taryn O'Day. Taryn Grows. Oh my God, I feel like she's my daughter. I do.
Yeah.
I feel like she's my daughter.
I feel like manifesting is really important
I
in the
know.
mental health process.
Seriously, right?
Yeah.
And she is also the one that gave me the nickname Rini. So that's how that came about. Instead of Maureen, they couldn't say Maureen. So they could say Reen, and then Taryn started calling me Rini. And there it's been. Hi,
You're
sweetie.
welcome, world.
I know, right? just what the world needs is to know how I got my nickname.
I know.
You know?
Yeah.
And then when I was 2,
Oh, we going way, way back. I like it.
I know, right?
Yes.
They pretty much know my whole life story anyways. It's like,
Well, thank you guys for having me on. I'm so honored and just excited to talk about something that is so prevalent in the world today, mental health.
Exactly. And we welcome you wholeheartedly.
With that, we introduced you as a mental health advocate. So why don't we start with a little bit of your backstory and a little bit about your background and what makes you a great mental health advocate?
Well, did you just say background? I thought you, instead of background, I heard background. I'm like, I got a lot of emotional background I can give you. It puts me in
That's
this
baggage. That's baggage.
That's baggage. Yeah.
Background, that's it. So let me just full disclosure. I have no clinical training. I have no reason outside of the few TED Talks and great podcasts I've listened to have any kind of authority on this subject. But what I do have is—
But that's what we want. That's
what
we want. We want people that, we want real.
Yeah, I would say the background of what I'm bringing to the table here is I've spent the last decade working with small businesses and economic development, and I worked at the Chamber of Commerce. So I got to know people in a very vulnerable place in their lives. And I got to help them navigate some of the hardest thing ever, which is starting businesses. And so I kind of, outside of that, I'm an empath by nature. And when you're an empath, you tend to magnetize a lot of people that need support and healing and need to be heard. And so I would just say, based on personality type and then the kind of career that I chose, I've been in the trenches, pretty deep rooted with people who have been suffering with a wide variety of mental health issues. And so, like I said, it's more out of just observation and living it with them versus actually doing anything from a clinical standpoint. So that's kind of the place that I'm coming from.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
Because you're perfect.
Yeah.
I'm not.
I can say that.
I'm a recovering
that.
perfectionist. Recovering perfectionist. Yes.
You want to talk perfectionist?
Yeah.
This is your girl.
Yes, but recovering because it's not obtainable, and that's what leads to a lot of people feeling like they're never going to be able to manage it.
Sweetie, clearly religion has played a huge part in your life. Was it always that way?
You know, I was raised in the church from a really young age, but it was more of like this kind of transactional relationship. So I went because Grandma, your mom, Randy, my grandma,
she made us go.
Very devout. I got very good at calisthenics, which is stand up, kneel down, stand up, kneel down. A couple of Hail Marys, you're good to go. So I would say I've been very, the church has been a prominent part of my life, but as an adult, making some decisions to pursue my own relationship with church, Christ, and the spiritual guidelines that I kind of base how I live my life off of, that really started right before college. And so I went to a small church at that time. And unfortunately, as the church grew, a lot of the egos grew. And then it became a lot about the business. And then some infidelities were happening. And I was pretty pissed. And so I'm like, man, this place that's supposed to be a safe haven and the echelon of what humans are supposed to be navigating is really broken. Why would I follow this? So I walked away for quite a bit of time. And what I realized, though, is the moral compass that religion has played in my life superseded the human side of everything. So I needed some directive on how to navigate my life and how to be an example to other people when navigating. And I didn't have the tools to do that just on my own volition. So that's why I kind of leaned back into the church more as an adult. I pursued that relationship and am still pursuing that relationship today. So I would say religion is a huge part of the fiber of who I am currently.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Gold star. You hear that, Jesus? Gold star.
Jesus.
There you go, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, here. There it is.
Yeah. You mentioned you just mentioned navigation techniques. Can you go into that a little bit? What are some of your navigation techniques and coping mechanisms?
Yeah. So, like I said, do we have any empaths on here? Like, raise your hand if you're like you just feel all the feels, right?
Yes, I am that person.
Yeah. Yes,
we are exactly alike.
And it is like the biggest blessing and burden simultaneously, the ability to feel for others and to actually be in the trenches with somebody when they are going through the hardest or greatest parts of their life, and to actually absorb some of that energy is so wonderful, but also it can take a huge hit to your mental well-being, your physical well-being.
Well, we also use humor as a way of coping.
Yes.
Because, you're feeling other people's energy as an empath. And to release it, we just use humor,
Yes. Levity is a huge part of my process.
People.
Huge. Yes. As indicated by my shirt. Nope, still not married.
Nope, still not married.
Not sad about it. So from a navigation standpoint, like when you feel everything all the time, it is so hard to compartmentalize what is mine, what is not mine, and what authority, what provision can I give to somebody in this space during that process. So it's taken me well into my 30s to kind of figure out how much do I take on and how much do I let go. And I would say boundaries are a really hard part of me as a person. I'm really bad at boundaries. Like I say yes, it's intrinsic for me to want to say yes to everything, to support people and to always be somebody that somebody can count on. But the challenge with that is you're only one person and you're only allocated so much time in the day, just like everybody else. And when you're an empath and when you're somebody that wants to fix people and fix the brokenness because you think as a Christian, specifically, the way I navigate this is I'm like, oh, Jesus called me to like help people in need. But also what I've learned from defaulting back to just kind of the Christian side of things is God also equips, right? So teach a man to fish. Don't freaking fish for him. Teach a man to do something. And the cool thing that I'm learning now is now that I'm pursuing more of that relationship with Christ for me is I watch how Jesus, he didn't stay in one spot. He traveled a lot in his 3 years of ministry and he gave people the information and he kind of gave them an example of how. And then he was like, all right, guys, deuces. I got to go out to the next place and walk the desert to get to the next spot. So he left there. There's this kind of trail of accountability that you leave versus actually doing it for somebody else. So navigating wise, I'm very much in the trenches of learning how to be able to help equip and support somebody in their process, give them the tools and the resources, and then go, I no longer can manage this from my side. I'll be here to be a support from afar. So that's currently my navigation technique is how far do I go? And then when do I take a step back to let somebody else take it from there?
Well, that word boundaries is something that is really prevalent today in mental health. And we're all learning to do it, and you have got a handle on what you need to do. So I want a 3-page essay on how I can do it.
My boundary is to say no. I will give you a 200-character Twitter post. How was that?
Okay, that works.
It's a boundary and a concession, but not completely saying no.
You were so cute. You are a recovering perfectionist. I know this.
Yeah.
And can you explain that to our audience? And how did that shift change? Because this is what this is about. The shift change.
Yes.
Change your environment and surroundings when you decide to be recovered.
Right. So I would like to say, I think we talked about this pre-show, but I like to call this like the shift show. Because, life is kind of a shit show all the time. But the shift show happened when I was like, okay, so the first time I actually acknowledged it was back in 2008. I just finished college. And as everybody knows, that was the height of the economic crash, right? 2008 was like detrimental to a lot of industries, and coming out of college with a speech communication degree, which isn't going to do a whole hell of a lot for somebody, right? Outside of being able to kind of talk, which now it's more accepted now today, being able to talk and dialogue like this, widely more accepted than it was back in 2008. So I just decided, I was like, man, like I had a plan. I was going to graduate, and then I was going to like go get this career. I wanted to be a news anchor. And then the world took a dump, and I'm like, okay, so what do I do now? And so my plan fell apart, and I had to reevaluate. So I did what any responsible, smart, perfection-oriented human would do, is I didn't get a job, and I bought a one-way ticket to Europe, and I left. That's what I did. I ran away from everything. But I realized I needed to physically change where I was at to have a new perspective on where I wanted to go. And so that was kind of a huge impetus of this process, was just, hey, like you're too entrenched in the chaos right now, and you can't even see sideways. So why not take a step back? And I just happened to take like a 5,000-mile flight back across the pond to get a good perspective on where I was supposed to be going. So that was actually
you've heard of the show. You've heard of the show Emily in Paris. You were Taryn in London.
Yes, Taryn in London.
That's exactly what it was. Taryn in London.
Thank God there wasn't a camera crew following me. I should not be allowed.
So Netflix or Amazon, if you want a new show, Taryn in London is your show.
You go.
Wait, the only way this is making any actual TV is like, what's the network that just has like the shittiest shows ever? Because that's what it should have been on. Because it was a shit show. Like me in Europe, shit. I disappeared. The FBI got called. I met the Pope. There's like so many things that happened.
I know.
It was a mess.
I know.
Right.
Yeah. It was a mess.
I'm sure.
That's the mess, though. It was a good process.
I'm sure. Yeah. So you mentioned something earlier, which is something really interesting, is certain things about not being in your control and stepping back. And you just talked about that. Was that, besides the example that you just gave, can you give one more example of that? And how did you learn to accept that fact that, okay, this is something that we can try and try and try, but nothing's working. So it's not in our control. How do you learn to accept that? And can you give maybe one or two more examples of that?
Yeah, I was really tired of literally just having a freaking bruise on my head, because I would just literally knock my head against a wall trying to get things accomplished in my life. Like there were so many things I wanted to do that were just doors were closing left and right for me. So an example, as Rini knows, my big audacious dream, what I like to call my big audacious dream, is to open a brewery with my dad. And I've been at it for 10 years. I've been brewing with him for 10 years. I've been in the industry for a long time. And everything, all signs were pointing to, like, you're not going to do it. We can't find a space. Nothing was zoned correctly. Everything was expensive. And I started to realize, again, and part of that was a lot of my Christian faith, which is there's protection in rejection. And I used to be one of those girls that a door closed and I'd freaking kick that mother trucker down until I got the answer that I wanted. But the reality is like when you are told no, that is because something so much better is waiting for you in a different capacity.
Exactly. That's
so
how
much
I
better.
look at life.
Yeah, and you don't even need, I mean, I just, that foundation for me is my Christian faith, because God always tells us, like, why are you worried? I got you. I mean, he says it much more like poised than that. But basically it's like, stop worrying.
I got you, girl.
I got you, girl.
No
and the second, honestly, Neil and Reen and Monday, the second I let that go, the second I started to say, okay, God, you got me. This is on you. You show up. Doors were open that I did not even realize. So here I am a decade later, still pursuing a dream that I thought was closed. And now doors are opening, and it's so much better than I ever could have imagined. I'm more emotionally ready to tackle taking on a business. I have a better community support behind me. I've got better clout as far as the industry is concerned. So I was not ready to do that when I wanted to 10 years ago. And the second I took a step back and let it just be the way it was supposed to, the world just said, okay, now here you go. And it was the best thing that could have happened. So protection and rejection, people, remember that.
That's fantastic. And by the way, this girl has the greatest father. Like, her dad is
hands down.
He should be cloned. You know, everyone should have a father like him. You know,
no,
seriously.
Then you wouldn't appreciate him.
Great guy.
He's the best. Have you guys read The 5 Love Languages? Are you familiar?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
If you haven't read it, great book, because it's a good conversation on not just about like, oh, how do I interact with my significant other? Because some of us don't have any. But how to navigate humans. How to navigate
Clarence
humans.
In New York. Clarence in New York is available.
Call me. Whatever. I'm going to build a brewery. Then they'll just show up to the.
Oh yeah, they'll show up.
There you go. Right.
The egg doesn't chase the sperm, people. It's biology. I'll say there we go. That's how it goes.
Oh my
Anyways,
God, you are so funny.
That got weird.
No. We are weird. That's how we look at it.
Yeah.
No,
Fair enough.
We roll with the punches. So, what's the biggest stigma, according to you, of mental health? What do you think? You know.
Ooh, stigma-wise, okay. So here's what I love about 2022. 10 days in, whatever day it is. I love that we are able to have such an open conversation. Like, we could not have done this 15 years ago. That it was unheard of, right?
We couldn't have done it 5 years ago.
5 years ago, right?
5 years ago.
You were the, okay, she's the girl that's going to therapy.
It was in the closet. It was just starting. The door was just starting to open because people were starting therapy.
Yes.
And now it's open.
Now it's open. And I love that this is a part of our everyday conversation. I mean, you're talking about from little children up to, significantly older people who are now able to dialogue on this in a safe, in seemingly a safe capacity. A lot more resources than there've ever been. However, I will say my only criticism of that is because it's so widely accepted, now there doesn't seem as much to be an accountability there. So everyone's like, oh, I'm depressed. And someone else like, yeah, me too. And you too. And me too. And me too. And all of a sudden we live in this world of like, oh, good, we're all depressed together. But like, what is the impetus for you to want to move forward out of that depression? Do you want to stay in it because you and your homies can all talk about it all the time? Or what is going to get you to move? And work, jobs, are a huge example. Like, I work at a university that gives you ample time off for everything. I'm so grateful for the health benefits I have.
Stanford. She works at Stanford, people.
I do.
Stanford.
I don't go to Stanford.
I'm not that universities in the world.
Yes, it's an incredible university, and they've got great benefits for their employees. But I just realized that you can lean so much into your the mental health process that it's like this never under cyclone, like, oh, I'm depressed, but also I have anxiety, but also this and this and this and this. And it's not like you're excused, but you're also given a lot more permission, which I love. But when does that permission stop? And when does the accountability take place? And that is what I struggle with. It's not about mental health. It's about mental healing. And where does that process begin? Acknowledging is one thing, but once you've acknowledged, there's an action item that has to happen.
No one is gonna knock on your door and cure you.
No.
You have to cure yourself. You have to want that more than anything in the world.
Yes.
is to get better. And then you have to pursue that, because there is no one coming to rescue you. No one.
Yep.
We are all our own souls, our own energy, and we are the ones that have to do it.
Yes. The work has to be done.
Thank you very much.
Yes. Thank you for coming to her TED Talk.
Yeah, come to my TED Talk.
Yeah. Accountability. I think that's a great segue. What? Yeah. And what advice would you give to others who want to take that first step towards creating a mental shift, besides the beer? Besides having a beer.
That's not good for everybody.
Dang it now. Well, actually, the brewery is going to be.
Yeah. So I would say my biggest, what I would advocate for when it comes to wanting to take the first step is, they say this in any kind of therapy, right? It's acknowledging that there is something that needs to happen to get you from where you are to where you want to go. But the most important thing, and people are not really great at this because I think intrinsically people just kind of want to keep things close to the chest by nature. It's a vulnerability thing and a defense mechanism to want to expose when you're vulnerable or you're broken. But building community is the only way. I used to say this when I worked at the Chamber and Economic Development and Tourism. I'd always say, you cannot business alone. You cannot open a business alone. You cannot have customers alone. You cannot do this whole process alone. This is why I had a job. We had a whole place for people to come. The same thing can be said and advocated for from a perspective of your mental health and your mental healing process. You cannot do this alone. The accountability is on you. Okay. You acknowledging action, but you cannot do it alone. And you guys are a perfect example. You started a podcast because there was a community of people who are like-minded going, let's bring some kind of something to the world that maybe will resonate, and that will give somebody a vehicle to move forward with. So you have to build community. And if you can't do that in your physical community, and COVID's kind of a real dick and has messed that up from a physical standpoint, there are a lot of online forums, and these podcasts are a perfect example. What's kind of cool in this current iteration of the world is, as opposed to like, if you have crippling anxiety for some reason about going to see a therapist or going to a group setting, the fact that right now, the world is saying, hey, it's actually more responsible for you to stay home, but you still have access. So if I can be in my jammies, super comfy physically, in a place that I feel safe, which is my home, and I can zoom in with a therapist, or I can talk to a group of people, or be on a podcast talking about this, then there is that kind of false sense of like, I don't actually have to interface with the world. I can just turn off my computer if it gets too hard. Now that can be dangerous, right? Like, because the accountability is definitely on you versus being in front of somebody else. Walking physically away from someone, I would say, is much harder than just turning off your camera. But there is that first line of like defense when it comes to vulnerability is, now you're disarmed in the place that you're feeling safe physically, and then being able to talk emotionally about things. That's like a really incredible gift that we've been giving amongst this pandemic.
Wow. That was an incredible answer.
I read that in a fortune cookie. Don't give me too much credit. That was my Panda Express last night.
That was the longest fortune cookie in the world.
Oh, it was a paragraph. Clearly they're bored there at the Panda Express factories, okay? A lot of therapists got fired from their physical jobs. They all went hired at Panda Express. Could you imagine? How cool would that be? Like, your fortune cookie is just this like mental, like it's an actual therapy session inside a cookie.
Oh my God. You know?
I think I might have invented a new business.
Literally, if you scroll Instagram, every other thing is about, your energy and not letting people get to you, get you down. If someone is criticizing you, it's about them, not you.
Yes.
And when you understand when people are, talking shit about you, it's about them. There's a jealousy factor. There's something in them
I would agree with the caveat depending on who is saying it and what role or authority do they have in your life. So if you have, so at church, we've talked about this thing called your oikos. It's a Greek term. It's oikos, and it's a Greek term, which means you're 5 to 8, the people that are closest to you in your life, the 5 to 8 people that like kind of you surround yourself with and you hold up in high regard, or you have some kind of maybe authority in your life or vice versa. So to your point, Reen, a lot of that can be, it's just a projection of how someone may see you or how they're feeling insecure. But also, I would say we do have a responsibility to people that we know, love, and trust to listen to what they have to say, because we're always going to see through one single lens, right? And that singular lens can be very blinding in some capacities, depending on what your agenda or motives are. So surrounding yourself with people who are going to speak truth out of love, that is really important. And not everybody has access to that, but I would encourage people. Find it. Yeah. You can find it.
Find it. Yeah.
There's 7 billion people on this planet. You can find it. Actually, I was just going to do a quick little caveat to that too, as far as like, you were asking about like energy and then Reen, you talked about the energy shift. I look at it as energy as it's currency, right? And I literally, one of my favorite books, I highly recommend anybody on this read the series. It's called The Life-Changing Magic of Not Giving a Fuck by Sarah Knight. And she's got incredible, 5 books out there. Have you read them, or has anybody even heard of them?
No.
Heard of them.
I I listen. I'm because I commute to work, so I'm a big audiobook, or I like to go on walks. So audiobook, and she narrates it. But she gave this example, and this has stuck with me for at least, it's probably been about 6 years now. But she goes, imagine, actually, I'll give you a visual. Hold on. I'll give you an example. Okay. This is you can't even see, it's a shot glass.
Yeah.
Almost like there's something bad written on it. It's not. Just, anyways, you got a shot glass. There we go. Okay. So this is your shot glass. And I have a shot glass full of fucks at any given time. One is all I'm allocated today. That's my currency. Now, am I going to give the fucks to things that I care about, or am I going to give them to things I don't care about? Because once it's empty, it's gone. I got nothing left. Okay. So that's all I get in a day. So I literally visualize my shot glass full of fucks, or your energy every day. And I consciously have to make a decision. Where am I going to spend it? When people have chaos, right? Because I'm not a chaotic person, but I manage a lot of chaos in my work and in my personal life with just people and circumstances. And when I decide how I'm going to spend my energy, I really conscientiously try to give it to things I actually care about. Now, an example is I was not feeling well a couple weeks back. I got in the line at Starbucks to go get a cold buster, it's like the little vitamin C drink. And I waited in a significantly long line, and I got to the very front, and they're like, oh, sorry, we don't have any of the items to make it. And I'm like, you got to be mother trucking kidding me. The amount of time I just spent here, and there's no list anywhere that says that they're out of stuff. So I was beyond frustrated, compiled with I didn't feel well. And I could have decided at that moment to just be pissed and leave. Or I was like, or you're already here. It sucks that this is not readily available. But how are you going to spend your energy? You're not going to waste their time. You're not going to yell at them. It's not their fault. So I was like, okay, you know what? What do you guys suggest? And then I empowered the barista to do her job and make some great recommendations. And we ended up having an awesome conversation. And I'm like, it could have gone completely different. Have I shifted and been like, well, I can't believe you didn't tell me you were out of this, right? I took ownership of how I was going to navigate that process. And it ended up turning into an incredible conversation with somebody who was empowered to do not only their job, but to also bring value to my life, which is, you can't help me with this thing, but what do you recommend? And we ended up having a great conversation. So take it from the shit show to the shift show. And that's how I spent my energy.
That's perfect.
Great. Yeah.
That is a perfect analogy, because, it wasn't her fault.
No.
And you can get frustrated with someone that you think is intentionally, like, okay, this girl, she wants to go better. Yeah, we're not going to give it to her. And it's how you want to spend your energy. You decided to have a great conversation with her. You probably made her day.
We ended up exchanging like contact info, and we're like, we should meet up for a beer.
I think you kind of partially answered this, but I'll ask it anyway. What are some daily tips and hacks you implore to manage your mental health? Like you kind of went into it a little bit about shifting the experience and changing your perspective, but just little things here and there that you do on a daily basis that really helps you.
So I think routine is really important. I think routine has the ability to hold us accountable. So for me, it was really important that I'm a list maker. So what I try to do that's really helped me is like, I've got pages and pages of like lists and check marks that I physically give myself and goals for the day. And it could be something as simple as like, clean out your closet or like take out the trash, right? Those mundane tasks that took energy to do. And sometimes I put them off and I'm like, oh my God, and then they compile. So I think routine for me is become a huge part of my life. And that means I make a list for things like the top 3. I'll put 5 things I want to get done, but my goal is to finish at least 3 of those. And I am like such a visual person. I like to be able to mark it off. And so just that, like the physical act of marking something complete and then what it mentally does for me can completely change my entire day. So, and a huge part of this is, and what's been really challenging about COVID is because we can't interface with a lot of people, but being outside, what that does for your soul, vitamin D is actually physically, physiologically can do something great for your body, right? Vitamin D gets the neurons firing, a little bit of sunshine, a little bit of fresh air can actually stimulate your nervous system, and exercising stimulates your nervous system. And that's what keeps the batteries going. That's what keeps everything charged. So for me, walking while listening to podcasts gets me outside, and then it mentally gives me that kind of like break. I'm also a huge, when I'm stressed, my biggest stress reliever, I get in my car, I roll down all my windows, and I drive for at least 30 minutes with my favorite songs blaring at the top of and singing at the top of my lungs. Because the actual
I love that. I love that.
And one more hack for anybody. When you're really, really stressed, this is so simple. Go to like a Supercuts or, one of those more inexpensive places and just getting your hair washed.
That's my favorite thing in the world.
Like women would appreciate this. I'm going to generalize here. Ring, back me up. I hate washing my hair. Like it is the biggest pain in the ass. I've got to do like my whole schedule.
Look at how long mine is.
Yeah, it's crazy long. This is. I put a hat on because I'm like, and
this is COVID hair. This is COVID hair.
So my thing is just even that act of self-care by letting somebody else take care of you in that capacity, that very simple thing, just getting your hair washed away. It's like $10-12. That literally, it takes so much off my plate. I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to physically do this. And I just get exhausted by the idea of it. But letting somebody else care for me is a huge process. And it's so simple, but I'm telling you, like, let yourself do it at least once a month. Let somebody else just wash your hair. I'm kidding you not. It will change your life.
Your life. It does. It really does. And also gratitude journals. I think gratitude journals are very important in our life. We have to realize what we have and be thankful.
Yes.
Because a lot of people don't have what we have.
Yes.
So I think that will help your mental health tremendously. And every day I'm thankful for my little goddaughter and niece, Taryn Grows. Taryn Bailey Grows. Taryn Bailey Grows Day. I'm still in her, Charlie.
Yeah.
Anyway, sweetie, I know you have a meeting here soon.
I do.
And so where can people find you on social media?
So I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. I am a contributor, not so much a consumer. So I like to put things out that are funny, lighthearted. Love it is a huge part of my process. But I actually don't sit and scroll. I'm very infrequently on there consuming. So contribute, don't consume.
Her story is one of the funniest things you will ever watch in your life.
It's
Is it at Taryn B Grows?
It's just at Taryn Grows.
Instagram?
All my social media is just
Instagram.
Yeah.
Well, follow her on Instagram, and I'm telling you, watch her story, and you will just like. It makes my day.
I'll keep you entertained.
I know. If I get sad, I just look at Taryn's story, and I'm like, yeah.
I've had some of those
should be living life.
Ridiculous things. Yeah, but you got to find levity in every day.
What is your favorite saying? Because she says it to me all the time.
What? I see you, Jesus?
I will sleep when I die.
Oh, also that. Oh, but I'm turning a new leaf. I realize how important sleep is.
Sleep is.
Yeah. Yes. I this incredible book I'm reading right now. It's called Lifespan. And it's actually it's about biohacking. It's this geneticist that works at Harvard. And he actually is talking about how you can actually reverse aging. It's very plausible. And how if they do blood samples, they can tell how old you are based on your blood. And like someone who might be 36, my blood might be 70 years old based on just the biology and the genetics. So it's this incredible book called Lifespan. And it's by, I'm pulling up his name right now. His name is Dr. David Sinclair. And he wrote this incredible book called Lifespan.
I'm going to download it.
It's unbelievable. And it's all about just body hacking and the importance of just very fundamental things you can do in your everyday that will actually preserve your cells, preserve your energy, and give you the mental fortitude to conquer a lot of stuff that comes at us, because we're in a really tumultuous time right now. So
I love you, sis.
I love you. Wait, I'm going to take a picture for social media. Say hi, social media world.
Hey.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you for coming on. It was incredible. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. And thank you, Taryn, for coming on.
Be sure to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at all the links listed in the description. And don't forget to hit like on this video and subscribe to this channel so you never miss an episode. And if you want to show us a little extra love, we also have a link for donation. Thank you, everyone, once again, and we will see you right here next week at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Goodbye.